All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Amanda Fest podcast, where our mission is simple. It's to inspire and empower you to take aligned action towards your dream life, whatever that looks like for you. I am so stoked about today's guest. I have the lovely, the beautiful, the talented Ruby Chase. Ruby Chase, for those of you who don't know, she is a singer, a writer, a producer, a DJ, and a ceremonialist. With a focus on taking her listeners on a journey, Ruby serves up a unique ritualistic approach to her live performances, weaving a broad span of musical flavors ranging from deep tribal bass to floating angelic highs, blending worldly dance tracks with her original music, ethereal live vocals, and interactive invitations. Ruby's sets turn the dance floor into a ceremony. But as we have done with every episode, before we dive into this juicy conversation with Ruby, we're going to take a moment to ground down, arrive in the here and now, and just let go of whatever it is that is going on in the world around us today. So, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it is safe to do so, I invite you to close down your eyes. I like to put a hand on my heart and one on my belly, just to help me connect to my physical body, tuning into my breath, tuning into my internal world, slowing down, just taking a moment to ground. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just noticing what's alive for you in this moment. Doing a little body scan, checking in. Maybe you're holding tension somewhere. Maybe you've got some racing thoughts. Just allowing yourself the opportunity to get present with what's alive. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And on this next inhale, I want you to think about something that you are calling in for this next little listening session. And on the exhale, I want you to think of something you're letting go of, you're releasing, you no longer want to hold on to. So just a couple of breaths with that intention. And the release. Final breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. You can open your eyes, shake it out, bring some presence into your hands, into your body. Amazing, beautiful. Welcome. Welcome to Amanda Fest. Welcome to your bodies, and welcome, Miss Ruby. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Oh, I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here in your fest.
I am so happy you are here. You have no idea. I always like to start off before we dive in, just giving a little bit of background of how we connected and how we know each other. I accidentally am wearing my Deep Tropics merch right now. um, but
I've been.
yeah, Ruby has been you've been someone on my radar for years. Through the LA scene, through ecstatic dance worlds, your name had come up again and again and again and again. And I started to get into your music and started listening to some of your DJ sets. And then finally, this past summer in August, I was invited to facilitate artist interviews for Deep Tropics Music Festival in Nashville, and Ruby's name was on the list of people that I was supposed to interview. And I told the founder, there was a whole list of artists, and I was like, I don't want to pick favorites, but I am so excited about this conversation with Ruby. And you came into the trailer and we hit it off immediately. 10 minutes was not nearly enough. And so after that, we were like, hey, want to dive even deeper? Let's do this. And so that's how Ruby's here.
It was such a immediate, it was like one of those like, "Oh yeah, Insta best friends? Yes, let's go." We could talk for days.
That was that your first time at Tropics?
Yeah, and that festival was amazing.
It
I absolutely loved it there. So, so
it
cool.
was so much fun, yeah, and it was cool too because then we did the interview, and then we also got the opportunity you, and KY Honey did your little music video, and so we got, like, all of this one-on-one connection time that was so beautiful, so special, so thank you for saying yes, thank you for being here, I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me and just for being the radiant light that you are, feeling like the work you're doing and how you're weaving and spreading the word and just inspiring artists. I feel like you and me both really share that. Like we are artists and we love to spark others. And I really feel that in you. And when you were telling me about the theme for this, I was like, oh yeah, that's like my whole dharma. Let's go. Like super obvious, massive yes all around.
Well, I'd love for those who are not as familiar with your story, if you're open to sharing a little bit about I kinda wanna dive into the twofold of, there's you as a spiritual being and the journey that you went on to embody all of the wisdom and the magic and the juice of this like priestess energy and then your medium the art, so I'd love to hear a little bit about both sides of that journey and where that crossover came into play.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a fun threshold. I love the weaving of that because they both inform each other so deeply, you know. When you are a spiritual being, you can't separate your art or your work or your career or your profession from that depth. You carry it into everything and I was really raised on that. My parents were both total hippies that were originally both raised Mormon in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then when they were 18, individually, they both had their spiritual awakenings. My mom, like, ate a bunch of mushrooms coming out of high school and, like, looked in the mirror and realized I look like a cookie cutter of everyone around me. Like, who am I? And went on this big spiritual quest and found yoga and found kirtan and found Byron Katie and all these very spiritual threads, especially for their time. Like that was like the yoga conferences were what we now experience like the music festivals.
Right.
So that was kind of their scene and their moment. And then my dad as well, you know, he's really into the outdoors and nature and was studying shamanism and very curious about the esoteric realms. And so when they had me and my sister, it was a culture where we were really raised with this open mind and this connection with the earth and with nature. We did a lot of camping trips and hiking and getting out into nature and then simultaneously having this deep connection with our bodies through yoga and through we would go to Byron Katie conferences and study these kind of pseudo mystical teachings for their day and age and got introduced in high school to like Doreen Virtue and Carolyn Mace and these spiritual teachers that really helped shape my view of the world. And then simultaneously, the art was always my dharma, like no
Right.
questions from a very young age. My mom really valued art, and she put me and my sister into a fine arts preschool. So from a really young age, we were dancing and singing and playing pretend and doing plays. And my teachers really recognized that it was something I loved. And they were like, "Oh, do you know your daughter has perfect pitch? She's really excelling. She really loves this." And so it was revealed very young that it was just a passion. And I was driving all the time toward this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate for. I really felt called to be acting, to be dancing, singing, to be on stage. And my parents, they valued the art, but they weren't artists, they weren't musicians. And
Right.
but they were really supportive. They really did their best to provide the opportunities. And they had a friend who was a casting director, and they were like, "Hey, our daughter's 5. She wants to be acting. Can you have lunch with her?" So when I was 5, I met with her over a lunch. She was like, "Oh, she's well spoken. She carries herself well. I can at least give her an audition
Right.
when what comes up for her." And the next week, an audition came through. I did it and I booked it. And it was in Salt Lake, I was one of two people in my age range who would book everything and had over 100 jobs by the time I was 13 of acting. And that opened a lot of doors for different opportunities, as well as we had the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake when I was 8.
Mhm.
And I was in a dance troupe and we auditioned and I got chosen to be a soloist dancer. And then being the like go-getter that I was like, I really want to sing though. Like
Yeah.
this is cool. These like thousand of dancers, but I want to sing. So I took it upon myself to record a demo with a neighbor who had a studio, a
What were you
3-song
were you
demo.
8 at this time?
I was 8, yeah, recorded these 3 songs, one of which was an original that I had written, and I brought this CD and wrote on it to Kenny Ortega, who was the director of the whole thing, and he's like who did High School Musical and Dirty Dancing, he's like a legend.
Mhm, mhm.
I walk up to Kenny Ortega and I'm like, "If you like the way I dance, you should hear me sing." And I give him the CD and they called me like 2 weeks before the closing ceremonies and I got to sing a solo in the closing ceremonies of the Olympics, which
Wow.
like I'm like wondering if I'll ever quite hit that same like 2 billion audience thing ever again.
Wow.
Highlight. And then that opened into this international choir that was formed for the Olympics. And we started a girl group and toured in Japan when I was like 12 and 13. So there was a lot of the art, but it was also informed with this kind of spiritual nature. And then moved to LA, did the LA thing for a while. And you know, I feel like I started to feel like a almost like a split. It was like the acting, dancing, LA wheel of,
Right.
you know, you in LA, it's like this very cookie cutter cattle call, kind of like you show
Mhm.
up, you be this pretty thing, and like it's that. And then I was
Right.
simultaneously in the spiritual community of going to underground raves and feeling this other thread. And they felt like a bit of a diverging timeline. And after a medicine ceremony, I got a really clear hit that was like, you need to stop acting completely. You need to go with the music, and you are not allowed to lend your likeness to anything that isn't the story that your soul is here to embody, which is heaven on earth and a new timeline. You're not here to play the dumb best friend. You're not here to play the drunk rebel teenager. These were the roles I was getting booked as. And it was like, no, you have a voice, you have a story, you have your own thread that is what is going to shape humanity. And you can't do that by playing the drunk cheerleader in the movie. You know what I mean? It's like that is contributing to this old narrative.
Yeah.
And so I
Was
called my
this was this
manager.
in was this in an ayahuasca ceremony specifically?
Yeah,
Or
there
a
was two
different
ceremonies
medicine?
like within a period of time. The first one was a mushroom ceremony by myself, and I was on the Hollywood Hills, and Marilyn Monroe came and initiated me and showed me this cropped blonde bob look and was like, you need to cut your hair, dye your hair, you need to like read, you need to be an artist. And then the
Yeah.
next ceremony, which is when the medicine was like, you need to stop acting completely, be a musician, follow your music, write, you know, and like really bring your story forward. I was like, it was a big transition. So cut off my whole team. Basically, I was like, I'm going on a sabbatical. I need to figure out who the heck I am.
Wow.
Was what opened into now, you know, the music that I'm making and the shows that I'm putting on. It's all kind of from that thread of, okay, what's the new narrative that we want to bring to humanity at this time and not play into the old consciousness stories, but really shape it with the art.
I have like full body chills. I didn't know any of this, so that's why I was like, I want to start with just hearing what you feel called to share. Um, wow, and I resonate so deeply with so much of that. Really, really cool. First of all, to hear that you're almost like second generation connection to spirituality. I know very few people that have had the honor of that. And what I think is so special about that is like you got a head start where,
Mm,
like in your really young age, you were able to cut through and to arrive at a place faster because you have more work to do.
Mm.
I read a book about spirituality a few years ago, and it was talking about plant medicine, and that there's certain, I'm very pro, of course, but that there's some people that have some resistance towards it because they think it's like cheating or whatever. And the book was like, listen, if we're in a burning forest and you've got two paths out, one's faster, one's a little bit convoluted. Yeah, you could take the convoluted route and you will get out, but like if you could go out faster,
Right.
and I think
Right.
of it in terms of you only have a certain amount of time in this lifetime, and the faster you arrive to that point, the faster you could get to work.
Yeah. Totally. Or we can waste our time like looping on the same lesson a million times or the toxic relationship. It's like how much more direct are we willing to go to really actualize what we're here for? And some people might be here for, their soul contract might be really around relationship and like that
Right,
becomes where the energy and time and attention needs to go. But I find for me, yeah, whenever I am in a relationship, for example, that is in that kind of like looping, taking a lot of time and energy away from that bigger mark,
right.
it, it's just a distraction. It's like, why would we waste our time
Oh,
there?
I love that.
Humanity
I
relies
started
for
I started like a question to ask myself because I feel so similarly of like this. It's just this bigger mission that feels like it's being channeled through and everything needs to be in devotion to that. And so like when I'm making decisions, whether it's to say yes to a coffee with you or to say yes to a big opportunity or to say yes to a career path, it's like coming back home to the question, will saying yes be in devotion to or distraction from this higher purpose, what I'm here to do? And um yeah, it feels like you are just very, very clear on that, which is very cool.
yeah, it feels like a choiceless choice for
Yeah,
sure. And then we're seeing in our daily lives the importance of it. I'm always just, and especially right now, just in such awe with the state of our world and just this moment that we have chosen to be here and how much shift and change and kind of like, I mean, there's a dismal reality of a potential timeline. And then simultaneously, there's this thread of this golden era awakening consciousness. I mean, we feel it at the music festivals, we feel it at Burning Man, we feel it in these peak experiences of a breath work or even a new moon circle with sisters, like whatever that thread is that is popping up through the concrete of the density of so much intensity in our world right now, it becomes even more important for us to really step into the Dharma and be willing to show up for the mission right now.
I love that. I love that. Well, typically in this podcast, it takes a minute to kind of peel back the layers of spirituality versus practicality of stepping into our dream reality. But from the way that this conversation is going, and just from my experience of you, it sounds like that has always been so integrated and clear and easy. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, it sounds that way. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
that's that's a beautiful question. I don't know if I would say it's always been necessarily clear and easy. Like, I think like any of us, it's more of a forgetting and remembering wheel, It's
Right,
like we come here to forget. It's essential. It's part of the design of this place is that we
right.
come to forget. We forget, we come in, we're humaning, and then we remember. We have these moments, whether it be a lyric in a song or a music festival or a whatever the thing is that can catalyze the remembering to come back into center. But I definitely think it's always been integrated. Like
Yeah,
the art has always been informed by the way that I view the world, which was sculpted with this kind of spiritual upbringing, but it also was sculpted by the idols and icons that I had to look at who were doing what I wanted to do, which for my age was Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Beyonce. There was this vision of what being a pop star looked like or doing
right.
music at the biggest level. Like there was this vision, and that vision is hypersexualized. That vision is, highly based in consumerism, and that it's not like the empowering motherly feminine matriarch,
Right.
that now what I'm aiming for. I'm like, okay, we don't actually need another naked pop star. That's entertaining, but it's a lower chakra activation. It's like a quick get off
Right.
versus the explaining how we're really going to move the needle for where we're going as a humanity. So there was a lot of unlearning that needed to take place in order for myself to come into my more authentic version where I wasn't placing these expectations of like how it needed to look. And I definitely had those eras. I can look back at some of my early music videos and be like, oh dear, okay, that was my like Britney Spears era
Right. Right.
moment. Glad I did that and glad it's over.
So from an industry perspective, right? Like I come from the world of entertainment as well in all these different capacities. How do you find you're able to carve a path that is both intentional and sustainable? And how do you uphold that in the large scale? And then, I'm sure on like an opportunity to opportunity basis, if there's anything like there's any specific examples that kind of come to mind, I'd love to just hear what that journey has been like.
Totally. Well, the practicality is really important. Like it's important to have an anchor in our spiritual practice with who we are and why we're doing it. Like that ultimately in the highest expression is driving every choice and decision and expression of the art. And we are in this world where if you don't have your shit together, if you don't have your availability to actually play in the industry level of being a professional,
Mhm.
it's only going to take you so far. And I mean, I have so many exquisitely talented friends, probably I could say more talented than I am, like in just pure raw, like, wow, blow you away with their voice or their
But
instrumental.
it's not enough.
Right. You have to also be willing to like run a business and have a brand and not only do the art really well, but now we have to be social media creators that understand how to reach wide audiences in order for our music to be successful. It frustrates me and enchants me that all those pieces are really required. Um, and it's been a learning. I mean, it took me a long time to crack that code, and I'm still cracking that code. I don't feel like I've, come to some like end goal at all with where
Right.
I am. I kind of even at the beginning of my career and of my expression, but it's I would say the three things, if I could boil it down, one is having good mentors, like having people that you can ask questions that can help see you before you can see yourself, that can bring the pieces of the process that you might be new and green to and kind of illuminate the path moving forward. I can definitely thank a lot of my mentors
Right.
for how I've been able to become who I am. Another one is really being willing to work within a calendar, like to set times that songs are going to come out, to be willing to throw your own parties that you can play, before you might be given that opportunity by someone else. Like
Right.
me and my best friend made a production company in Los Angeles 12 years ago, and that was my start. Like I threw parties and then I would play them, and then people would see me there, and that would open other doors. But that was my initial experience. And it also gave me so much backbone around understanding production and
Mhm.
understand contracts and understanding like what it takes to do all the other things so that now as the artist I can really relate to them. I understand so deeply what it is to do what they're doing, and that builds this rapport. So being willing to make choices, make decisions, and stand behind them. And then and then the third thing is how to bring the most authentic expression of who you are, and learning what that essence is. How can we apply that to the music, to the visuals, to the live show?
Yeah.
How can we get our essence across? Because I think what the world needs right now more than anything is just authenticity, human touch. We got plenty of perfection. We got plenty of AI tools that can write a thing or make a whatever, but
Mhm.
that human essence that's so uniquely you, that's what people crave. And if we
Mm.
can find ways to really like bring that to life, then it just gives something real to hold on to and to connect with.
Ugh. Ruby for president. No, I love that. And again, I resonate with so much of that, like the mentor thing. I mean, that's honestly a part of why I started this podcast was, I was meeting such incredible people all the time, like yourself, and having these deep, profound, life-changing conversations and recognizing the privilege that I have the opportunity to meet like-minded individuals that could support me in not only furthering my own development, but teaching me things that I don't know. And now in the digital age, you don't have to know them personally for them to be your mentor. You don't even have to pay them. There's a quote that I love that's like, you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. And then a caveat to it is, and it doesn't need to be people you know in real life. It could be podcasts you listen to, movies you watch, books you read. These can be mentors.
I've never thought of it like that piece around, because I love that understanding of we become like the 5 people that we're around the most. But if we're in training into their consciousness through their podcast or whatever the medium is, I really love adding that in because then it just gives a
Yeah. Well,
layer of creative, liberty on
Well,
that.
then in the digital age, there's no excuse. I think so many people, like, for them to be like, I don't know anyone that could be my mentor. I'm not in those circles. All you have to do is go online and for free, you have. I mean, we're in the age of information. This is where you channel it, right? I mean, we do know, and like I think one of the common things that is shared in the spiritual community is just like hygiene around what your consumption hygiene, right? So what TV you're watching, like all these things, like just being mindful that it's not affecting you in a negative way. But I think to the opposite effect, how much you immerse yourself in the information of people that inspire you is such a value add. So I love that. And then I love the creating your own opportunities and all of these pieces of wisdom, by the way, for everyone that's listening to this podcast. That's what I think is so cool about having entrepreneurs, healers, artists. It's all of these things are applicable to whatever it is you want to do. It's not just if you want to be a musical artist. If you are waiting, I had a guest very early on in my podcast where she was like, stop waiting to be invited to the table and just build your own fucking table. It's not even pull up a chair, it's build the table, create it yourself. I worked in entertainment for years with an actor who was the same thing where it's like you could sit there and wait for the phone call or you could create the thing that you're going to make the phone call about.
Wow, I love that. That's so good. That's so real.
It's
Building the tables.
Yeah, build the fucking table. I'd love to dive a little deeper into like the different layers of what you're doing, like the work that you're doing right now. Obviously, you have your artist project, you as Ruby Chase, you're a singer, a songwriter, musician, DJ. I know you're performing. I also know you have a mentorship container. Is that still a thing? Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
there's that. I know I was doing some homework on you and we've had conversations. I know you've got your hand in some like different philanthropical endeavors. So I'd just love to kind of get a maybe like a grand scape of like what you're working on right now, what you're excited about, and then I'll probably pull some threads there.
Yeah, it's a fun season right now. I'll start with the music part because that's definitely where I'm like the most lit. I've been releasing music consistently for about 5 years. Really started with COVID. I was like, God put us all in timeout. And I was like, oop, no excuse but to finish these songs and get them out there.
God
And
put us in timeout. I've not heard that yet. I love that.
grateful. Oh my gosh, I could use another one of those.
Because you
Like,
think about what you did in that corner and make some magic.
I feel like all the artists, like, it was a moment for humanity, but like the art that came out of it, I'm like so grateful for myself and all my friends. I'm just like, wow, like, geez, we made things in that timeout. But I've never put out an album. I've
Okay.
been releasing singles, EPs. I think I just released my 105th song, which is pretty cool.
Wow, congratulations.
But my first debut album is slated for next spring. And it's so cool because it's like this collection of music that spans over that whole time. Like there's songs on that album that I started like 7 years ago and that have just been like slowly worked on. And then there's some that are brand new. And so I'm really excited about the album, and I'll do a little tour with it as well. And just really, I feel like I'm in a changing of the seasons, even just who I be. I'm like feeling different, and I feel like that's really reflecting in the music, and just showing up in a way where, yeah, it's like so much more about what we're really doing. Like the just like doing it for fun part, it doesn't have the same weight to it. I think also just the state of the world. I'm kind of like disenchanted with just like getting together and like burning the thing down. I'm like, no, we gotta like plan. I'm like, what are we building? Let's build this table.
Yeah.
So that feels really exciting, and just like cultivating this new sound. Um, and then on the other end of it is this artist community. It's called Resonance Chrysalis. And we just launched Butterfly Fam, which is a realm of this incubator that has been kind of transforming over the course of a few years. I've run different iterations of it, and it's still it's always informing itself to me. Like it's not so much like this is my business. It's like,
Right.
okay, I'm into this archetypal process of really, it's all about the blue butterfly. It's like the
Cool.
butterfly process, this idea that the butterfly goes into a chrysalis and it transforms, it becomes a completely different being in the chrysalis, and the whole thing of the caterpillar turns into this goo, and from this goo the cells gather together in fives and become imaginal cells, which are different. They're a different cell, and at first the organism recognizes these imaginal cells as an invader. It's like, this is something that needs to be destroyed, and it attacks it until there's enough imaginal cells to where the whole thing becomes a butterfly. And now this new being breaks out of the cocoon, dries off its wings, and can fly. It has an entirely new life ahead of it.
Wow.
And through this archetype, I've really been in this constant process of cocooning, evolving, becoming, and emerging as these new versions. And I'm going through it myself with this album. And I help take artists through that process because there's so many aspects to it, and music is such a wild west. It's such an unpaved territory, and so
Right.
my goal to provide community and support and mentorship, and also just the frameworks of a container to be able to hold us as we go through that process and become these new versions of ourselves. And knowing that as soon as we get comfortable in that version, like we'll probably cocoon again and transform again and keep evolving and keep growing. And so, yeah, Resonance has been my place for that, to really pull the artists together and allow ourselves to be supported and cared for and tended to along that process. And then we support each other as well. So I'm matchmaking artists and kind of creating this incubator for us to transform within. So it's been really a powerful teacher, and I've grown so much within it. And the artists that are in there, oh my gosh, I just had two of them locally throw a show this weekend, and
Love it.
like it's so incredible to hear the music coming out of this container and these artists, and it's growing and evolving. So that community door is open, and we're always welcoming artists into that. And then the other pieces, ceremony is a big piece of my life. I'm deeply in service to the plants and to self evolution in that way, and the depth that's
Mhm.
possible ceremony. And so I do a lot of work in that realm, bringing music and facilitation and support to circles in that way. And then, yeah, it's like there's always magical little things popping up. And I'm kind of in a moment where I've like cleared the slate to be able to finish this album. And there's this like new threshold that I feel like I'm on the
Yeah.
verge of. Whatever this next evolution will be that feels exciting and different.
Oh, it's so cool. I'm so excited for you, and I'm so grateful. What's really exciting about the work that you're doing, it's like to the fact that you've chosen a medium that has the ability to be one to many, one to many, 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 and the fact that you are finding your path to success within that while remaining true to your authenticity and your vision and your mission, and not allowing the constraints of the industry to dictate it. But this is what have always done. Artists have always paved their own way. But I don't feel as though many artists are on the same type of a mission as you are in a way that feels really important. Like it feels like I am very excited that it's you, but I'm also just really excited to know that there are people in the world that are super in integrity and devoted towards this, like, I mean, we all have this overall mission and goal that I feel like is the reason why we met. It's the reason why we all keep finding each other in this lifetime. It's to elevate this overall global consciousness. And I got the download a few years ago. And again, part of why I started this podcast was to really be the bridge between mainstream culture and consciousness. And I found that art is the best medicine. It's the best spoonful of sugar to go with the medicine.
Right. And I love the quote that the artist's job is to make the revolution irresistible. Like
Yeah,
art is that like draws us in, and it transcends barriers of religion and language and upbringing and culture. And it's this unifying thread and pulse and heartbeat that we can resonate with and we connect with it. We don't have to understand in our head why. It's not a cognitive understanding, it's a feeling. And I feel like that thread of getting people plugged into this unified feeling is so needed right now when there's so much division on the planet.
yeah.
Like we just need to remember that feeling of connection, and that would heal so much.
What has your experience been as you've been performing around, at festivals and various venues? I'm curious to know like what the feedback has been from those who are not as ingrained in like the conscious spiritual space. Like I'm curious what that, effect is on someone that's seeing you perform and they're like, "Ooh, what is that?" Like,
Yeah. I feel like, the the feedback I get is mostly feeling based. And I think that's also my goal. Like I don't want them to necessarily need to know what they're feeling.
right.
Sometimes it comes as, wow, like my grandfather passed away a few years ago and he came to me on the dance floor and I got to have this healing with him. Or, I remembered this piece of why I'm here, or I've been having a really hard time. And I feel like that set was kind of a turning point for me of being able to step into my power and like kind of shake this heaviness that I've been in. It's very feeling based, and that's my goal. When I'm doing a set, I'm very much holding this space of infinite possibility. And I have certain ritual technologies that support that, whether it be my little altar that I put on the DJ booth that helps grid and anchor the space with different crystals and prayers and invocations. Also, I'm always opening the set with some kind of a prayer, whether I say it on the mic or not, and just declaring the space to be one for transformation and calling upon our benevolent, elevated ancestors and guides to be with us. So there's certain kind of tech that supports that.
Right.
And then also just, intention is so important, and holding that belief that any of it is possible is such a powerful thread. I mean, belief and imagination are two of the most powerful tools that we have as humans. And if we can integrate our imagination with belief, apply that to anything, and you have a powerful cocktail for anything you'd like to manifest.
Can I add a third one in there? I like belief and imagination. I would add curiosity into that.
Yes.
If you're curious about your imagination and your belief, then anything is freaking possible.
and throw a little intention in there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's like
I,
make a little stew.
yeah, that's delicious right there.
Yeah, I think I asked you that during our interview for Tropics. So I interviewed maybe, I don't know, like 30 different artists. And one of the questions that I came up with that you had one of my favorite answers to was, do you have any rituals or practices that you do before a set? And
Mm.
99% of the artists I asked that question to did not have an answer to that, but you had a great one.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting world because I think that a lot of artists don't even really understand the power of what they're doing. Like they like the experience, they like making music, they love playing it to their fans. There's an exchange happening that is appreciated, but until we're really kind of like peeling back the layer, I had an experience when I was, geez, probably like 19 or 20 at an Insomniac event.
Mm.
And I'm like, I think it was like EDC New York. It was like a big rave, the whole thing. And I remember just looking around and feeling this like energy of spiritual awakening that all these kids on Molly were having. They were having this, their whole world shifting, and they're like in this moment and everything's making sense and it's big, right? It's like this kind of
Yeah.
soul moment, but there was nowhere that it was being directed. It was like all this energy kind of like flying off.
Yeah.
It was like, they're with their binky and their consciousness is having this experience, but their deeper soul wasn't having any guidance around it. And I was realizing it was like a really big piece that anchored my why was like, I want to help develop tools that can help direct that amount of energy. And we feel it at Burning Man. And I have an
Mhm.
interest with Burning Man because I love it. It has been so transformative for me, and the people you meet there and the infinite potential is magical. But just this concept that we build it and burn it down and it's so short lived versus being something that's like a thread moving us forward. How much energy is just kind of like being burnt to the ground, literally.
Right. Oh, I never thought about that.
Hurts my heart a little bit, like the pollution and the trees and all like
Yeah.
the kind of like frivolous energy. I'm like, wow, if we were to take that amount of energy, and I think about bandwidth all the time, like the amount of energy that something requires to create or cultivate. And
Right.
if we were to apply that amount of energy towards something that could be sustainable, what would that yield in our world? And so that same question is here of like, for these artists, like they may not have even an awareness of how much their set is shaping the consciousness. And I
Right.
think that you just realize that like that's going to inform what art wants to be created, that's going to inform how artists approach playing a set, that can inform even how a festival curates its space to be able to facilitate what can be generated from that amount of energy that's pouring into it.
Yes. Oh my God, you're
But
speaking my love languages, all of them. Yes, yes, yes. I think about this all the time when I go to shows and festivals now. I call it market research because there are moments in which I'm in it and I'm on the dance floor and I'm having an experience. And there are many moments when I'm there studying. I'm
yeah,
standing in the back of the room, I'm watching the crowds, I'm looking at what the artist is doing. I'm like, to your point as well, where it's like, I believe that play is such an important element of life and it's necessary. And at the same time, for me, because I feel like I have this higher mission and higher purpose, when I go out, when I party, when I play, when I'm having fun, there's a dual purpose for me in it. And many of the times it's that. And I remember, I think it was like with John Summit. I was watching a set of his recently, and he's really captured quite the audience. And I was just witnessing and recognizing like like you have a captive audience of open-hearted individuals that are ready to receive whatever energy you're sharing. And I don't believe that many artists who stand up there, whether it's DJing, whether it's performing, understand the gravity of what they can do even, right? And what they have the ability to do, and the responsibility that comes with that as well, not only to show up in integrity in your set, in your piece, in your art, in your music, but also in your life. You have all these people that are looking to you, looking literally up at you, and there is a responsibility to be a person of integrity, and it goes all the different layers and levels, right? To the producers, to the event facilitators, all these people need to understand and recognize who they're placing in front of these susceptible audiences and what their purpose is and what they're doing. And again, it's like coming back to that intentionality. I think that so many people could see people out there partying and playing, and they're like, oh, they're just, and it's like, well, hang on a second. We've been dancing and partying for eons, since the beginning of time. Why? Right? Like,
Right. Oh my gosh, it's such a huge thread, and like that was how the tribe communed with God. Like that was
correct.
the way that we would feel our interconnectedness. That was like where the village would remember the stories of our ancestors, was like around the fire with the dances, with the songs. And nowadays, we, so many of us are so disconnected from our ancestry, from any of that like deep cultural remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
Music festivals are essentially fulfilling that human need, but it has the ability to be either soul fulfilling or can be really damaging. I've been to certain shows where the subterfuge kind of messaging that was underneath the music, I felt harmed by, and
Right,
I felt
right.
clean myself off after some of these shows of being like, wow, like they just probably think it's cool and edgy, but like there's a lot of power in the symbology. There's a lot of power in the sonic magical realms of what music is. And I really love that you brought up that responsibility, because
Big.
it's a big one. And I think that that's actually something that Deep Tropics did really, really well, because so much emphasis goes on to what's happening on stage. And I'm always very curious about like, okay, but what's behind the curtain at
Right.
any events? And like Deep Tropics was so dope because literally I'm like on my way backstage to the green room area, and I'm like walking through a whole zone of the backstage where they're sorting the trash. Every single recyclable good
Right.
being like volunteers like cleaning out plastic ware to be able to recycle it. Like their sustainability back end was so impressive to me. And it's
Yeah.
like those little shifts where we're really taking that responsibility and that accountability and that integrity to another level. It's like no one's seeing this part. Like this is
Right.
behind the curtain, but we're doing it. And that
Right.
matters.
Well, and adding on to that element as well, like you were talking about, I've never thought about Burning Man like that. Of like, and I've heard mixed reviews on Burning Man and people that are very anti, and what their issues are. But the idea of cultivating the energy and burning it down. I remember after my first burn, everyone talked about how it's really hard to go back to real life after this, after you've experienced the magic and the possibility of what could be. People get super depressed after Burning Man, and it's like a really hard like way to come back. And I remember like experiencing not that, but just like going into coming home from Burning Man for the first time with that like in my ear. And then after the second time, I was like, well, what if I created a life that feels like Burning Man all the time, so that when I came back home, I didn't have to be depressed. I utilized it. And this is why when I talk about Burning Man, I'm like, it is an incubator for creativity, for expansion, for if you use it that way, right? You could use it as a week to fuck off in the desert and get high and just do whatever. Or
Right.
you can see it as an opportunity where we have, I think New York City is the same way too, where it's like New York City's got like crazy chaotic energy and it's too intense for some people, but it's got some of the most brilliant minds of our time, all whether they live here or they come here for a reason, they're here. And there's something about that, and Burning Man has that element. And so I think to the point of music festivals, medicine ceremonies, big experiences like this, there's the element of the actual experience itself. There's the element of the music that's behind it, and then there's the element of the integration process of it. And it's yeah, and it's cool that your work touches, like we just kind of did that zoom out, you're working in all those realms, and all those realms need to be a part of the process. You can have, like, to that point of imagining all these little kids having a Molly experience, and they don't know what it is, and they're not connecting it to God, but it is connected to God. And then what do? They're chasing the high. They're going back, and they don't want to stay till after, like they don't want it to end because they don't know how to bring it home with them. So they want to do it again and again and again. Or the ayahuasca, where they're like, I need to go back again and again. And it's like, you actually don't need to keep going back to the rave. You can, but you don't need to. Because, like, once you've
Right.
done it, you can, like, then find ways in which to incorporate it into your life, and like, listen to your music and go back to that same place and do it in your fucking bedroom, and, like, arrive. And
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Integration. That's such a sweet, juicy thread of like, okay, how do we bring the magic of a music festival? And even the name of your podcast is so lit
thank
because
you.
we're bringing the festival into the daily life.
Yeah,
We're bringing that magical serendipity and the spontaneity and the synchronicity. Like those are the things of a festival that are, it's pure magic,
magic.
when you like and it's there immediately, and like you're like, I want a cold beverage, and you turn around and there's a smoothie shop, and it's like, wow, then your best friend walks up. It's like this level of synchronicity is possible in daily life when we are choosing it,
Yep,
like when we are designing it and making a life that is as magical as the music festival. I think that's ultimately the goal.
yep, 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 yep.
Yep.
But, like,
Yep.
yes, like, that's literally my whole brand. That's my whole mission. It's how do you live, and for me, the work that I've been doing and supporting people with, it's like, my journey has been about coming back home to safety, because I recognize that I wasn't able to tap into those things because I didn't feel safe within myself. And when you don't feel safe within yourself, one, you're reaching externally for chasing highs, chasing dopamine, chasing experiences, but it disconnects you from being able to be present with the moment, from being able to be present with others, from being able to be open. It would be so easy to be like, yeah, just incorporate play and fun and spontaneity, and voila, your life is magical. Unfortunately, for those who are listening, or fortunately, if you've been on the journey, and I think you're a great example of this, it takes years and years and years of devotion towards showing up with intentionality and discovering your authenticity. And we'll bring it all the way back to the beginning: forgetting and remembering, and forgetting and remembering, and learning and unlearning, and choosing different.
Yeah, and really learning how to trust your intuition. Like we all have that internal guidance system that it might require you to do some cleansing and to kill off the parasites that are controlling your mind and getting rid of the non-organic food and detoxifying from the copious amounts of chemicals that are being sprayed on ourselves, our air, our food, our water, everything, so that we can be in touch with this internal guidance system that ultimately wants to live in that depth of synchronicity and serendipity and magic.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to clear the fog in order for us to be able to truly step in and have life that can meet us with that level of beauty. It's a choice and it's a deep commitment. Like you have to really, you might have to work for it for a little amount of time before it's just like the natural state. But I do believe it's accessible for everyone.
I couldn't agree more, Ruby. I am so sad because an hour is not nearly enough time with you. I need days. I need days.
Month on an island.
Yeah, for real. I'm like, I'm so grateful we connected on this path. I'm like, of course, we're so aligned, and I am excited to see the various ways in which our paths continue to weave and cross as we both continue even deeper onto our missions and journeys. I agree with you. I think you're at the beginning, even though it feels like, you've already done so much and there's so much more to do. And I'm just honored to get to be on this path with you and this journey with you. I want to give you the opportunity before we close out to, I know you'd mentioned the container that you host. I'm going to tag your Instagram, but if there's anything else that you'd like to plug, anything coming up that you'd like to share, I'd love to give you the space to do that before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. This has been absolutely magical to have these conversations. And yeah, the ways to be connected are really, you know, the Spotify, my Spotify, or wherever you listen to music, that's like my thread of art. And there's a lot on there to already explore. And the album will be dropping in the spring. Instagram is where I'm kind of the most active as far as like being able to communicate and keep in touch with each other's lives. And then for those that are interested in really developing their artistry and being supported by a group of artists and dope mentors and just having this kind of supportive community to become the artist that you feel called to be, Resonance Chrysalis and the Butterfly Fam is our squad there. So yeah, please jump in, become one of the butterflies with us. And yeah, more to come. I mean, it feels like it's just the beginning, and I can't wait to be connected to you for the rest of our time here as we actualize heaven on earth and make the most beauty ever through these peak experiences and then also through our daily lives.
Oh, I love it so much, Ruby. You're an angel. Thank you. Thank you. If you guys haven't already done so, be sure to like, rate, subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend. Tell them about it. And we will see you on the next one. Bye.